The monster had held onto Sandalphon's clothes, and Remiel tried calling him. But he told Remiel to run away instead, while he would try to free himself from the monster. Sandalphon eventually got himself freed from the monster, and due to the anger in him he carried his spear and smashed it on the monster, and it hurt the monster. However, the monster said to Sandalphon that if Sandalphon possessed a heart, then he should not be able to flee the sound of the trumpet. That's the melody of the lowest repose. So the monster went ahead and blew the trumpet, but Remiel wondered if the heart dominating the heavenly trumpet was working. Remiel could not get himself at a point, as he coughed for a while, still calling out for Sandalphon to know his whereabouts. He kept calling Sandalphon's name, but couldn't get a reply back. Luciel was seen with Rainold, still under Luciel's spell. Luciel was eager to know what the angel opponents will do against the power of creation possessed by the moon, so he decided to hurry up if he wants to watch it. Therefore, he woke Rainold up, and Rainold woke up as he gasped. Luciel then reminded him of what he told him earlier, that he had something to show him, whereby he asked him to look under his feet as he really meant it. And Rainold does exactly what he asked him to do, so he saw a black hole which he was scared of. Luciel, hearing what Rainold referred to, he was shocked, as he believed that humans truly lack inspiration, because he saw that the thing was more beautiful than giving it such a cheap name. Therefore he refers to it as a star, which is called the horizon of the void, which is also known as the home of those that are forever dead. The horizon of the void is also the inside of Lord Dark Lessa's stomach, whereby that was the place where Rainold's previous soul, Diane, was said to have gone to. Rainold, trying to get what Luciel meant, decided to confirm if Luciel actually means that falling into a place like that horizon of the void and dying there is called salvation. Luciel did not answer if he was right or not, but he only told him that Ray himself did not know what was in that horizon, although he may know, but not definitely. So he urged Rainold not to fear, because he could see it on his face, and he reminded him of the past, when he had stood before the horizon before. Luciel now asked Rainold if he knew why Ra actually took him to that place. But he did not, so he explained to him that it was only because of balance, as he also let Rainold know that his soul was an energy that could no longer evolve. Therefore he is considered as a final product, whereby if it's added with the universe time he used, the weight of light grew obviously. Moreover, according to Luciel, he said Rainold's soul shall become food for Lord Dark Lessa, and he asked if Rainold knew that there were countless deaths buried in the soil. He also let Rainold know that if something new was to be born, then there is a huge sacrifice attached to it, which is salvation. So it won't look like he is lying, he asked Rainold to also consider everyone in their circle of reincarnation against the cancerous disease of that universe. Therefore he told Rainold that they all must disappear for paradise to come. Nonetheless, Luciel said all those things were not for the sake of humanity, because if they all reincarnate, they won't remember their past selves. So he wondered what reincarnation matters to their lives, as it's just like the bridle of suffering that never ends. However, Luciel told him that the only thing that will save their souls from that prison is a cold and meaningless darkness. The only way to become is to become part of the natural flow, because Luciel said there was nothing to fear, as it is what was meant to be, since it is natural. Luciel later asked Rainold to look under his feet and check the holes, whereby he was told that his blossoming was planted in the emptiness of a tens of billions of deaths, and it was said to have been happening before, since the king could never obtain eternity. Therefore, whenever a flower has blossomed, Rainold would witness its withering, as the process is called creation. Rainold was still angry at Luciel, as he still blamed Luciel at the end of it, condemning him for the situation at which the world was in, because he felt like the world would have been better than that if not for Luciel. Luciel was just angry back at him, as he already knew that his behavior was due to human limitations, because he could see that Rainold did not think about the future, but was only concerned about the present. So Luciel promised that he was going to save the infinite future. Finally, Luciel told Rainold that if there was endless birth in the works, then there would be endless death, just like flowing water. And who can turn all that into a possibility is Lord Dark Lessa, in which Luciel also promised to make the world a perfect balance through her as well. Remiel was still seen where he was looking for Sandalphon, and was hearing a sound which he did not know where it was coming from, and did not also know what was going on. So he decided to communicate on the screen with Uriel, asking if Uriel could see the kind of situation he was in, and Uriel replied that he could. But he also let Uriel know that he could not communicate with Sandalphon. So Uriel advised him to return to the heavens immediately, as that place he was in is very dangerous. Actually, Remiel did not want to leave, as he was worried about Sandalphon, so he asked if Uriel had contacted other brethren, which he replied that he had done. Then Uriel let Remiel know that Gabriel and Mit are doing their own jobs respectively in far locations. Remiel sounded somehow surprised because he did not know about that information before. So Remiel had to explain to him that Gabriel went to search for someone, while Mit was at a historic site. Remiel was concerned when he heard that, and he questioned Uriel on why Mit went there, but Uriel could not give a response. Remiel then quickly left the place he was and disappeared to go and meet Uriel, because he didn't know why everyone went separate just like Gabriel and Mit, when they all planned that they would all look for Luciel. He saw that they were all traitors, which was not supposed to be, not even long after Lord Rey left them. However, Uriel could see how angry Remiel was, yet he still tried to calm him down, letting him know that others might have gone somewhere else because of something, and not that because they are traitors. But Remiel did not want to hear what Uriel has to know, since he sees nothing bad in the fact that they all should go and save Sandalphon. Surprisingly, Uriel refused to follow him, apologizing that he cannot fight at Remiel's side, since he was not made to fight. When Remiel saw that Uriel was not ready to help, he thought Labiel should be able to. Unfortunately, Uriel replied that he could not contact Labiel, since he believed that Remiel already knew that no one has ever approved their current actions. Remiel was quite shocked that Labiel was out of contact, which made him wonder what would happen. As Remiel already saw discomfort with how everyone behaved, he asked if Uriel can just take off his white crown, even though he knew that Lord Rey permitted it. Since he knew that Luciel had betrayed them and Michaela on his own, was acting all alone because they could not monitor them. And now, Uriel that was left to support Remiel also chose to be alone, as complicit in Michael's incident. Uriel got so angry that he shouted at Remiel, letting him know that he can never take off his white crown. As they were about fighting and arguing, Gabriel contacted them through the screen and saw the situation at hand, consoling both of them not to fight. Gabriel then let Remiel know that he could hear everything he talked about, but was confused on who Remiel was referring to when he talked about betrayal. However, he let them remind Remiel that he had been looking for someone for a while, but he was quite sure that Mit would never betray them. Gabriel has the belief that one day, in accordance with Lord Ra's will, everyone will burn their white crowns and be independent. Although Labiel might have burnt his own crown, but Gabriel knew he would have done that for a reason. Even Gabriel knew that Labiel, or sometimes Raphael, is the name considered to be humanity's most beloved angel, as he knew that he is the most righteous brother. Back at Luciel and Rainold, Luciel was touring Rainold as he remembered a goat who loves eating flowers anything except in contact with it, so that made him hated the animal, which is why he had always wanted to torture Raybald as well. But because of Lord Rey was watching Rainold, he could not do a thing, although he still tortured him a bit but not contented with it. Now that Lord Rey had died, he could do as he wished. Rainold got more angry with the way Luciel even hated animals, which made him find Luciel more disgusting, even though he was already beaten up. But Luciel reminded Rainold that it was Rainold who talked in true pain due to Rainold's spear which pierced his body. Rainold told Luciel not to compare themselves together, as he knew that Luciel was just a piece of trash who understands nothing about humans, not to talk of what friends and families means, which is why he is cruel. But Luciel explained to Rainold that it was because of Lord Dark Lessa that Rainold could believe in Lord Ra. If not for that, Lord Ra is just like a single goat to him. While they were still talking, Soreth came just in time, and he introduced Rainold to Soreth as someone that Dorath would kill. Then he let Rainold know that it is time for him to go, as Soreth would be his guide. Rainold, knowing well that Soreth came to kill him, wondered why on earth Luciel would refer Soreth to as his guide. So Luciel explained to him that he meant Soreth would guide him to the horizon of the void. And before Rainold would know it, Soreth already moved closer to him, opening his mouth wide to consume Rainold. Just when Soreth was about killing Rainold, Rabiel, whom Luciel Due addressed as Labiel, came in for him, whom Rainold himself did not know, as Labial turned his back at him, telling Rainold to move back, so he can fight with Soreth. But Labial moved closer to Luciel, as it seemed that he had business with him. He let Luciel know that he heard that he was a traitor, which made him think that Luciel had made new friends for him to do that. Luciel then called out Labial's name. That was when Rainold could get that it was Labial. Immediately he found out, he yelled at top of his voice, but Labial was not interested in what he was saying, as he just told him that they would talk later. Labial already removed his white crown before he got there, which Luciel also took notice of. He asked him why he removed it, but Labial also let Luciel know that he cannot defeat him. Rather, he just dealt with Soreth and made sure he ended him. Then move on to Luciel, and since Luciel already sees that Labial has dealt with his new friend, then he decides to deal with Labial as well, as he summons the dog of the void to arise. Immediately Rainold saw that he was already scared, and Labial saw that the dog of the void could hurt him, so he used his power to push Rainold back, and he fell. Rainold, feeling the pain, let Labial know that he can die, with the way he landed on the floor, but Labial told him not to bother as he promised to treat him later, after he is done with Luciel. Thereafter, Labial also awakened his own light's call, Titan of Lignum Vita. Thereby, 2 angels appeared, spears each, then he commanded them to punish, so they moved on to deal with the dog. Luciel, observing the angels, could see that the 2 angels were holding a spear made with the water of life. He commended Labial for that. And also Labial asked about his own spear, that he also got from Lord Re, which was made with was of life. Although Labial knew that Luciel has discarded Lord Ra's holy word, but he belittled the power Luciel had obtained afterwards. However, Luciel made him understand that even if he had not thrown away the holy word, the spear would attack Labial, even though he is still of Lord Ra. But if he commanded it, he was sure that it would do against Labial, because he said Labial was the one of the eminent 3 most faithful. But he now showed him the dog he summoned earlier, which was a monster, just as the demon's dog called Aldebaran. Luciel referred to the dog as a human, and surprisingly, the dog changed its form into a lady. That shocked Labial, but then he remembered the face to be one of the souls that Luciel had lost track of, that had never returned. So he now understood that those are the souls that Luciel was making use of, as he now gets Luciel's doings. Even Luciel could not argue, as he knew that Labial was correct, so it was not the demons that he was making use of, as the demons cannot do such things. Yet Labial still wondered who could have liked Luciel, so Luciel replied that it was the void, since Luciel can actually summon everything that is locked in the void, which is why he could summon the dog the other time. That is why he does refer to himself as the angel of contracts and locations. The interesting part was that Luciel's friends can open the path to the void, which makes everything work out fine for him. At this point, Labial moved towards the lady and carried her and tried confirming from her if they really opened the void's door, as he could see that her darkness has no equal. Therefore, he decided to know if she does follow Dark Lessa. As Luciel saw that Labial was becoming more interested with the lady, he decided to take his leave, leaving the lady with Labial as a present. While leaving, he remembered a guy on the floor, which he did not want to fight with him, due to the connection he thought they had. But he used his power to tie the guy down, which Labial tried stopping him from doing. And Luciel left, while Labial was happy for the fact that he now got the clue of where the souls that never returned are kept. Although he actually planned on doing things in moderation. But he was thoroughly entangled in something else right then, which actually pained him. Since Rainold saw that he was done, he then asked what he came there to do. Later he remembered that he came to save him, but he asked him why he had decided to help him. However, Labial did not give him a particular answer, rather he gave him a stern look, and Rainold already knew that he had passed his boundary, whereby he quickly apologized to him. Labial just went ahead to heal him, and he was completely healed, even better than before. Rainold was so happy, so Labial let him know that he may later become the apostle of medicine, in which it made Rainold remember a doctor because of Labial's grumpiness. But as Rainold was talking about it, Labial quickly told him to keep shut. Instead, he asked Rainold to contact other apostles to let them know everything that Rainold has seen and heard where he was. Also, he informed him that he had already burnt his white crown, which is why he cannot communicate with others, and also why others cannot trust him anymore. Whereas Rainold did not know how to use the white crown, as he didn't even know that it was like a phone, in which they used to communicate. So he asked Labiel to teach him how to use it, because if not, he would have to wait until the apostles got there so they can talk to them. However, Labiel told him that they cannot wait, rather he would show him how to use it, as he just helped him summon his white crown. Rainold was shocked and scared of wearing it, but Labiel let him know that his white crown is special, which will not limit his power, even as he wears it, since it was Lord Ra that made it that way. Yet Rainold was still behaving somehow to the crown, as he just collected it from Labiel, tore it, then mashed it on the floor. That got Labiel upset, asking him if he was okay to have done that. Surprisingly enough, the crown did not get destroyed, as another one appeared again on Labiel's hand, so this time Labiel made him understand that he cannot destroy the crown unless he burns it. Then, as Labiel explained it to him, he summoned on fire and wanted to collect the crown from Labiel so he can burn it. But Labiel took the crown to the hand, so he would not be able to reach. He did not want to hand over the crown to Rainold. Actually, Labiel did not expect such behavior from Rainold, which now makes him understand that everyone from Lord Dark Lessa's side is an idiot person with the way they behave. Meanwhile, why Rainold so much hated the white crown was that he did not know why it was so important that Labiel himself did not want him to burn it. Therefore, Labiel now asked him if he still wants to get his sister back, but Rainold did not give an answer, rather he was just obsessed with burning the crown. So Labiel just gave it to him and he collected it. Rainold, looking at the crown, saying that he did not know that it would eventually reach that extent in his entire life, of using the crown to save his little sister. And since he really loves his little sister, he decided to do it, if that is a step to save his little sister. He was feeling remorseful while he was willing to do it at the same time. So Labiel urged him to pull himself together, as he did not care if Rainold would use the crown as a mop or a dish mat. Anything he wanted he should do with it, because he was already angry with the way he behaved at first. Rainold eventually wears the crown on his head, as he expected to feel some kind of aura. But he could not feel anything. He thought Labiel might be lying to him before. But Labiel just told him to focus and stop turning around talking too much. Therefore he calmed down, touching the crown and tried to call with it, saying hello. But Labiel corrected him that the crown was not a phone. Yet, he did not answer. He kept on saying hello, moving forward, but Labiel kept telling him that it is not a phone. However, it later got connected. Even the apostles, Rainold, Uriel, and Gabriel were all surprised that he would be the one communicating with them. As Rainold was trying to communicate to Gabriel, he could not hear Gabriel and others very well as he could not show them what he had seen and heard. So Rabiel, as he was popularly addressed by the apostles, told the apostles that he has taken the crown off, since it was Lord Ra's wish after all, but he claimed Rainold has seen and heard everything. All of a sudden, he made Rainold fall down so he can suffice through the guy's memories, and he was able to do that exactly, as he was able to get his keyword, which was Luciel. Therefore he dug to his deepest memories to find some things out. While digging deep in Rainold's memories, Rabiel found out about Rainold's past life and his little sister, as his little sister was seen engrossed in his story, until it was time for his little sister to fall asleep. So he decided to use that opportunity to go to the forest to pick some raspberries, in which he promised his little sister that he will return back as early as possible. After getting to the forest, he could not get any berries, and he wanted to find some, but he still wanted to return home early because of his little sister. While he was contemplating on what to do, that was when he sighted a young boy who was able to pluck few berries, so he asked him where he got that, and the boy explained to him he hardly sees those, because some children do come there to pluck wild berries, which makes the berries to be scarce. However, he told Rainold to go into the dark forest, where he said Rainold could find some berries. Rainold felt reluctant to go, as some elders had warned them against that forest before, that they should go there. But this young boy trucked Rainold, saying that the elders are lying, that there is nothing fearful in the dark forest. Rainold was confused, thinking if he should go, as at then, the young boy already waved at Rainold, as he was leaving to avoid getting late. Then, Rainold now understands that the boy was a weird kid, although he already left then. Rainold eventually went into the dark forest to pluck some raspberries. While he was there, he suddenly heard a voice telling him not to come to that forest anymore, as there were a lot of mountain animals there, which was dangerous for him. The voice was from a young guy who was not a human but a monster in human form. He decided to help Rainold that day, and so Rainold let him know that he would have not been in that forest, if not that he did not have any choice, and since he also saw the young guy in that forest too, he did not worry anymore. They saw so many raspberries which they plucked. They were already stressed out by the time they were done. So Rainold appreciated the young guy for helping him, as that day was a hot one. The young guy tried for him. Therefore, he refused to give the guy some water from his bottle, as a sign of appreciation, but the guy refused at first, insisting that he was fine. However, Rainold knew that he was not, as he could obviously see that the guy was an odd one, and that made him wonder how that guy would live in the forest. Due to what Rainold said, it made the guy feel uncomfortable as he suddenly grabbed the bottle of water and drank it without hesitating. While he was drinking it, Rainold now asked to confirm if he really was not a human. The guy could not give an answer as he wondered why Rainold would ask such a question from him. And immediately Rainold saw that he was uncomfortable. He quickly apologized for asking him that question, as he clarified himself that he was not asking it for a bad thing though. Just that he wondered how he lived in that scary forest, because it makes it look as if the guy was a forest-dwelling fairy. Since Rainold has made up such stories for his little sister before, about fairies, monsters, and all that. As the guy saw Rainold mentioning fairies, he decided to differentiate between fairies and monsters for him, as he wanted to use himself as an example, but suddenly keep his mouth shut, because he wants it to remain a secret, and as Rainold observed him, he told him not to bother himself. That he did not actually mean it, just talking only. Rainold then stood up to take his leave, but handed over a bag full of berries to the guy to share with his friends in the forest, as a sign of appreciation for helping him that day from getting attacked by wild animals. He actually did that for him, because he wants to be borrowing that berry spot in the forest henceforth, for plucking of the berries. And he also asked the guy for a favor that he should help him and his family from getting hurt, as he knew that the guy has the power. He also appreciated the guy for not having him and his family lack food, because the berries were surplus for him and his family, which provides daily bread for them. Rainold then went home, and on getting home, they were seen as they already prepared food. Then Rainold asked them all to start eating, but they first thanked him for the food. The young girl who was with them asked him if he was able to get many berries that day because the food was surplus, and he rolled what he did. So he decided to share with them how his day went when he went to pluck the berries. He narrated how he met the young guy, whom he referred to as a fairy, in the forest that day, and he also explained how he met the young boy, who showed him the way to pluck many berries, where he went to, and while he was trying to find his way, that was when the young guy came in who helped him. The kids were all surprised when he made mention of meeting a fairy. They were so interested that his little sister asked him to tell her about how the fairy looked. Then he began narrating, putting some exaggeration to make it look like an interesting story, and they all eat thereafter. The next day, before the day became very bright, very early in the morning, Rainold went to the forest again. This time he noticed that the forest was super dark differently in the morning, which made him reason that maybe it was due to the fact that he got up early. However, while going in the forest, he suddenly saw some signs, which were kind of weird, that made the forest look scary to him. But later in some part of the forest, he could see the sun rise there, which made him think that that was the prettiest part of the forest. Then he walked towards where he wanted to pluck berries. On getting there, he expected the fairy to come out just as usual, but unfortunately, instead of the fairy, a wolf appeared, intending to consume Rainold whole alive. Rainold already fell down out of shock, started calling it for help, and fortunately for him, the fairy arrived who saved him as he stood before the wolf, so it would not kill Rainold again. Although the fairy knew that he had blocked with the wolf's meal, which was Rainold, but he let the wolf know that he cannot kill Rainold, although he has to beg the wolf, in which the wolf agreed as he just leave. But the fairy promised the wolf that he would repay that favor it did to him by not killing Rainold, because he didn't expect that it will turn back. Then the fairy asked if Rainold was okay. Rainold then replied to the guy that he is fine, as he even thought that it was the guy who was hurt. But the guy replied that he is also fine, as he asked Rainold not to worry. However, Rainold insisted that the fairy is badly hurt and needs to take care of himself, and the fairy also insisted, swearing that he really meant it, that he was not hurt, since he is not a human, so what happened means nothing to them. Despite all that clarification, Rainold still felt bad for the young guy getting hurt because of him. Meanwhile, Rainold also thought there was nothing to be afraid of, but he actually thinks of his little sister, which made him so scared that he would die. Therefore, Rayback asked the guy to tell him his name, as he claimed that he would never forget the guy's favor, as he held tight to the guy's hand, signaling the beginning of friendship. As Rainold shakes him, the guy realized that Rainold's hands were covered in cuts and bruises, as he was undeniably struggling for his existence. However, he let Rainold know that he had not done any wrong, and that he wants to help the current Rainold. The young guy happened to be Lord Dark Lessa, as he introduced himself to Rainold. So Rainold promised to always remember the name. As he also made Lessa know that it was a blessing for him to meet someone like him, because of how kind he was. Rainold had vowed not to forget the name Lessa again in his life. But later it seemed to him that his promise would have to change. Just then, Rainold woke up, regretting how he spent his past life, as he did not want to remember what he did back then again. Now he could see the good thing when humans could not remember their past lives. Rabiel was not even there when he eventually woke up, because he was getting embarrassed of how he spent his past life, so when Rabiel eventually noticed with the way he was soliloquizing. Since Rainold had woke up, Rabiel knew that the apostles would have seen what was in his head by then, from his conversation with Luciel to his past life memories, just that Rabiel could not see anything again on his own, as he did not wear the white crown anymore. So he just decided to ask Rainold to tell him why he stabbed Lessa in the back. However, Rainold was somehow guilty of telling Rabiel, so he did not want to tell him. Instead, he only let him know that it was his problem that he had taken off the white crown. Whereas, Rabiel was actually with Lessa in Rainold's childhood before Lessa became a god or formed any beliefs back then, as Lessa was just a goat back then. So he wondered why he got angry just because he asked him to explain something. Rabiel knew that there was no vessel purer than an animal, but Lessa was a special born. He was not only a pure vessel, but he was still overflowing with sheer virtue, which was a radiant virtue as white as snow, whereby Lessa in his goat form would sometimes tell Rabiel back then about his wrongdoings, which was so far from the cruelty committed by humans, and as Rabiel has always thought about it, he knew that Lessa was a good person who would not have made Rainold suffer anyway. So he was eager to know what triggered Rainold to do such. Rainold then explained that one day he invited Lessa to his home, and it was the day Lessa died, around afternoon. Actually, that day Rainold went out to get some groceries, and before he got back home, Lessa already got to his house. And on getting home, he met Lessa and some wolves. He wondered what could have happened. Then he remembered Lessa telling the wolf back then that day that he would do his favor of sparing Lessa's life. Therefore that day, Lessa let Rainold know that he had to repay the wolf's favor, so his little sister was torn into pieces by the wolves. He could not pull himself together when he was remembering those things, as he remembered Luciel's words, that he was able to meet Lessa both because of being speaking, but because Luciel chose Rainold's little sister, Barry. At this point, Rabiel already knew that it was Luciel's doing, that Rainold could not think straight again. Because Luciel actually knows how to mess with humans' conscious. Of course, Rainold's past life, dying had no choice. Then Rabiel let Rainold know that he was not actually blaming, just that he was clarifying things. He wants to know how Lessa does behave to humans. But Rabiel knew that if Rainold was to explore Lord Lessa's goodwill for humanity, he wondered how Rainold would be different from Ares. Plus the fact that Rainold does not know whether Lessa knew the truth behind the incident from back then. So now Rabiel wants to know what Rainold was doing if he would fight by Lessa's side for Lessa to forgive him. However, Rainold replied that he was not going to do that, as he does not care if Lessa forgives him or not, but he wants to be sure if Rabiel wants to know what he wants from Lessa in particular. Therefore, what he wants from Lessa was that he wants Lessa to stop sacrificing himself for any deed, making it look like everything was Lessa's fault. Rainold does feel bad for that. To the extent that Rainold did not even care if Lessa took everything from him, he would still not hate him. At one point, Rainold began realizing how Lessa's stupid face later became expressionless, which made him make up his mind that if he can save the world, then he is ready to give Lessa life. With everything being said by Rainold, Rabiel could not object to any, because he seemed to be fine with them. Just that he would notice that Rainold's desire for Lord Lessa is to possess something ordinary, and as expected, Rabiel's feelings are not so different from Rainold either, whereby he considered that to be of Lessa's strength. Rabiel did not pity Lessa just like Rainold had done, and that sounds confusing to Rainold, which Rabiel said he would explain lore about to him, so he urged Rainold to just continue helping Lessa, as he made Rainold understand the fact why Rat turned his back on Lessa, which was because of Lessa's abundant grace. Moreover, he knew that Rainold cannot accomplish everything by himself after all, and even Lessa cannot as well. But he let Rainold know that if those were his true intentions, goals and feelings, then Rainold needs to grow strong, to surpass Michael, the deputy of God. Luciel was seen again, with his subjects, Shed and Soreth, as he let Shed know that Soreth's durability has not been equilibrated, so he asked if there was nothing more that Shed can do again. But Shed replied that Soreth is not weak, but that was happening because he was stupid. Actually, Luciel was angry because Soreth could not win over Rabiel, whom he considered as just an ordinary angel. That made Luciel feel ridiculed. However, Shed let Luciel know he and Soreth do eat each other, which means that they did not hear each other. Luciel quickly told Shed not to talk about it again, as he let them know that if they did not act properly, then everything would be in vain. Therefore he told them to make sure they follow their deal accordingly. So he asked Shed to use his power to restore Soreth. Shockingly, instead of Shed restoring Soreth, he rather wants to kill Luciel, which Luciel quickly gets, as he wondered why Shed would want to do that. But he let Shed know that if he did that, he would rot in the void for the rest of his life. However, Shed replied to Luciel without fear, letting Luciel know that he is not a king, and therefore he cannot command him. All that he is doing for Luciel is just that he is merely helping him. And he wondered why Luciel was so impatient. Therefore, he made Luciel understand that he has to let him out of the Dark King's belly, and then out the world. It was then that he could allow Luciel to turn the world upside down as he liked. But Luciel made Shed realize that it was through Ra's death that the power of light already diminished a great deal, so he asked if Shed would be able to handle the smaller weight of light once the angels enter the void, and she replied that he will, since that is easy for him. So he strategized with Luciel that he would make the winged creatures he made himself to carry as much weight as an angel. Thereafter they would kill the angels together with winged creatures' help. Now he Luciel to give the creatures names. Luciel was concerned with how strong the creatures are, but Shed has no clue about that. Instead he just moves on to fix Soreth. Luciel was observing Shed, as it shows on his face that he did not trust Shed. He now understands in his mind why Lord Ra set up rules and regulations, which must be because of Shed, who has been able to create things. Luciel was not happy with Shed being able to create things, but he had no choice rather than to work with them, so he decided to give the creatures a look. Moreover, it was Lord Ra who made the first creation, after Dark Lessa, even before the angels were born, whereby Ra was said to have set the moon into the sky for Shed, instead of Ra marking Shed as a failure, which made Luciel think that Ra must have managed to appease Lord Dark Lessa's hunger by simply stuffing him into the void. They eventually got to where the creations were, and when Luciel saw them, he wondered what kind of name humans would give to them. Lessa was seen as he was trying to calm Curly and Rainold down, as they were both fighting over Dr. Manhwa. Actually, it was Curly who started it, and Rainold felt like it was not good for him to behave that way, so Lessa tried to stop them from fighting. But they did not. They continued arguing, and that made Lessa felt like he was the one at fault, thinking that the fight all happened because of him. While they were still fighting, Che at the hospital, who had been looking at them, decided to call their attention, and that made them stop fighting. Che then understood that there was really no need for them fighting, as he has been studying them for a while now. Then he turned back from talking to them. Since they already stopped the fight, he then faced the people he was talking to before. He asked them if there was anyone else that wanted to become human among those people, as they were demons and not humans. But no one among those people signified or showed interest in becoming a human. So he turned back, asking those fighting earlier why they were actually arguing when no one was really interested in becoming a human. Everyone was shocked, Even Lessa was, as they did not expect that those demon children would not be interested in becoming human. One of the demons asked the others if there is anyone that wanted to become human again, to which no one stepped out. He then asked them about who exactly they were talking about to turn back. One of them felt that the demon who asked the question is probably just suffering from reaching a puberty stage. He got angry when he heard him ask the lady about what she knows about him, to which the man stepped him and stopped him. The man then asked Lessa if this is really the best idea and if he is okay even though these demons are just kids yet. He then replied that she has brought him young demons who haven't done any wrong, and he could only gather as many as he could so no one would left alone. Lessa then talked to the demons that the power was never meant for them as they still have the chance to return. The young demon then retorted, asking Lessa why is he preaching to them since he can't even do anything not. He claimed that the powers is his and no one else. He then asked if Lessa wants to become a believer, then he might just take him to the balloon seller if Lessa tried crawling between his legs. He got slapped by another demon, a third-generation pentahorn who was the balloon seller. The young demon then asked why he's here since it was his balloon that he bought, to which the balloon seller claimed that he cannot remember something like that, and that the one who made them is Lessa, who he referred to as God that appears in the Bible. The young demon was shocked when he got to know that is Lessa, and also pointed at the woman demon who was with the human that she is also a third-generation pentahorn, asking the young demon to act accordingly. The woman demon and others were shocked that there are indeed two third-generation pentahorn. He then informed them that he couldn't care less for the reasons he became demons, however the world they know is no more because Ares is dead, and that if they don't listen, then they would also become a thing of the past, and should be thankful that God was at their side at the end of the era. The woman demon and the man were later seen at the corridor discussing the young demons that were brought, into which he wondered if Lucy is still alive according to what Lessa said, and that about him being the test subject for the experiment. It's not that she is not scared or sincere, but it was for Lucy, as she wants to see the day where Lucy lives happily and returns to a normal life as soon as possible. The man then said that he wants to help Rainold for the same reason and that he does not want to sacrifice her for that. The young demon who almost disagreed earlier, called Steve, was seen as he wanted to leave by himself but was being advised by the other demon who claimed that if Steve gets caught by the third-generation pentahorn then it's over for him. Steve then claimed that there is nothing like that. It's just an excuse Ares made up in order to manipulate people so he won't be fooled by something like that. And if that sort of God was an evil God in the beginning, then there's no need to trust him anyway. Steve then added that it's better Ares is dead so there won't be anyone to keep them from doing whatever they want, to which he leaped out of the building, to which he was followed by the other demon. At that moment, everyone saw a huge rip with red light on the sky. Steve and the other demon were taken aback when they witnessed a tear in the sky, which was followed by the appearance of something that resembled a large dog flying above them and crashing towards them. They were able to avoid it by avoiding it very instantly. On the other hand, they were so terrified of this thing that it opened its lips and asked them to give it their flesh and voice. During that moment, the other demon had decided to flee, only to later come to the realization that he had abandoned Steve. Therefore, he made a hasty return with the expectations that Steve would still be alive. Following his hasty return, he came face to face with Steve, who was rooted to the ground. He then apologized to Steve for leaving him behind since he was so terrified. Afterwards, he came to the realization that Steve had been possessed by the being who asserted that his name is Zazil and inquired about the location of the angels. However, the second demon attempted to approach Steve in an effort to retrieve him. However, the possessed Steve, who was known as Zazil, turned around to stare at the demon, which caused the demon to flinch in horror. While in a different location, Dark Lessa was observed with Lucy, who inquired about her whereabouts. Following that, Dark Lessa responded by saying that they are currently residing within her dream. Lucy then stated that because Dark Lessa is the deity of death, she was curious about who exactly she is. In response, Dark Lessa stated that she is not interested in naming herself or anything because she only exists to transform everything into ashes, because this is the fate that they are born with. After that, Dark Lessa asserted that she would not spare even a single particle of dust till the moment she passed away. Lucy continued by saying that they ought to spend eternity together, to which Dark Lessa responded by stating that it is inconceivable that she is no longer alive. Dark Lessa comforted Lucy and urged her to give her the response that she would send her to the place she desires. Lucy started crying as she realized that there is no way around it without one of them dying instead of the other. This caused Dark Lessa to do so. Zazil was getting closer to the D-Man and was about to kill him when he realized that the D-Man did not have the solution that he was looking for. When they returned to the building, other young D-Mans went in search of the third-generation Pentahorn and informed him that Steve and his friend had vanished, and that something had also materialized outside the building, as well as the fact that they had initially heard a ruckus outside, leading them to believe that Steve and Aaron were fighting with each other. They did not pay any attention to the situation. The Pentahorn of the third generation was exasperated by the fact that he would be searching for Steve and Aaron, but he eventually came to the conclusion that it would be more beneficial to find a solution to this problem before Lord Lessa finds out about it. He spotted a wreckage on the floor as he was leaving the house, and he couldn't help but ponder what could have actually occurred. After that, he noticed that Aaron was lying on the ground, so he walked closer to check on him. However, he soon realized that Zazil had been playing a joke on him by abruptly grabbing him by possessing Steve's body. However, the Pentahorn of the third generation swiftly used his strength to break free from the grasp, which startled Zazil because he had not expected to find someone possessing such strength. Therefore, in order for him to make use of his abilities in the material world, he requires a body that is composed of flesh. He was told that humans are weak, and he started to become interested in the Pentahorn body, for the reason that this is the only method for him to carry out Luciel's command, which is to eliminate the angels. When Pentahorn came to the realization that Steve had been possessed, Zazil responded by stating that he is a daemon of the stars produced by his venerable mothership. He also stated that Luciel had given him the name Zazil, and that his mission is to destroy the angels' kingdom and guide humanity to the abyss. It was then that Pentahorn inquired of the identity of Luciel, who was responsible for all of this, and Zazil responded by charging at him with a swift leap and slamming him with his power. Pentahorn, on the other hand, was able to avoid the attack, but he was eventually able to comprehend the gravity of the situation and know that Zazil is incredibly powerful, much more so than Lessa. It was then that he made the decision to take things seriously, took off his shirt, and turned into his D-Man form while electricity crackled all around him. He was able to punch Zazil, who was knocked away, and then he stood up and observed the altered form. It was then that he recognized that Pentahorn might not be a human, and he inquired as to whether or not he is an angel. On the other hand, Pentahorn informed him that he is a human being and that Zazil is simply acting immature. Because of this, Zazil felt that he was being challenged by the taunt, and as a result, he made the decision to take things seriously and was about to reveal his true form. After that, Zazil stated that now that he is aware that Pentahorn is an angel, he will demonstrate to him what is truly true. After that, he mumbled some words, which caused a tremendous red power light to begin to accumulate at his palm. As a result, he was able to create a barrier around Pentahorn, from which he was unable to escape. Zazil then spread his wings and scurried around, telling Pentahorn that his mother was the failure of God and that his father was the sin of humanity. Additionally, he stated that his mother was the failure of God, not to mention the fact that he has spent no less than 10,000 years in the womb, during which time he asserted that angels are no longer at the pinnacle of the earth. Zazil emerged from Steve's body and asserted that the human being, Steve, is still alive. Pentahorn then jumped to meet him in the sky, and he punched Zazil. Zazil then stated that Steve is still alive. As a result, Pentahorn was hesitant and did not administer the strike that would have killed him. Because of this, Zazil was able to take possession of Steve's body. He then grabbed Pentahorn's shoulder and was able to slam him back at the blockade, which caused Pentahorn to spout blood. After that, Zazil conjured his abilities in the form of a sword, which successfully pierced through Pentahorn in a number of locations, leading him to believe that he had died. However, he came to the realization that he is not dead, which prompted Zazil to assert that it is impossible for humans and demands to be alive in such a state. Zazil also stated that whatever he is, there is no one else in the memories that Luciel has inscribed in his brain that is similar to him. After that, Pentahorn grabbed the blade and drew them out, stating that he was struggling with a critical condition that prevented him from passing away. After that, his body started to squirm and recover itself. and it told him that if he wanted him to die, then someone on the level of a god would have to come and take him away. During the time that the conflict is still going on, Lessa observed a group of individuals who resembled apostles and were waiting outside the power blockade. Despite the fact that they could see that Zazil was attempting to get a hold of the body, they had the impression that he had selected an excessively powerful target rather than simply selecting a regular body, which would have been more effective. During the same moment, Luciel made his appearance at the location where Lessa discovered that his heart was shaking so much that he instantly hid behind a palm tree. He was able to see that Luciel was the one responsible for all of this. Luciel was telling one of his subordinates, Zazil, that he ought to have chosen a more regular corpse because the one he chose is decaying all over. Zazil responded by saying that he got carried away. While this was going on, Hisnil had the impression that Zazil was squandering his time. Luciel advised him to be patient and continue waiting for Zazil to find a body that he likes, just as they all did. Luciel, in the meantime, was pleased by the idea that all of these genuine devils are taking on the look of humans. He believed that this would be the most egregious form of disrespect to God. There was a nightmare that Lessa had about how he had met Luciel in his previous incarnation. He proceeded to keep guard over Luciel and the other devils. In the meantime, Zazil had already been aware of the fact that other devils had already come together and were waiting for him to finish. In spite of the fact that he was the last person, he was unable to acquire the body to own, which caused him to feel a little bit of humiliation. At that very moment, he became aware that Pentahorn, who was also known as Charles, had abruptly vanished from his sight. As a result, he was subjected to a heavy strike from behind and fell to the ground. Despite the fact that they were engaged in a struggle, Charles still had the upper hand. He smashed Zazil to the ground, who then started to chuckle. He rises to his feet and makes the decision to expose his real strength, an act that he accomplished by calling upon his jail sentence, Cauda Draconis, to seal Charles. While this was going on, other devils outside discovered that Zazil was using his true strength, which is designed to fight angels on human beings. Zazil was of the opinion that Zazil had chosen a difficult adversary to fight against. Initially, Zazil believed that Charles had been killed as a result of his assault. The fact that Charles was not burned by the flames of his attack, on the other hand, caused him to ponder who exactly Charles is. He was startled to see that Charles was not burned. Charles then stated that he had made an understanding of the nature of Zazil's power, which is that his light can be absorbed by dark power. He then proceeded to slash at Zazil with his strikes, even breaching all of the defenses that he had constructed. Zazil was able to glimpse a shadow of a massive mouth that was packed with teeth behind Charles when he was in the midst of receiving his defeat. At the Zazil's energy blockade, the battle had hit its peak. The once powerful structure was now in ruins as the clash of huge powers continued. Zazil, who had been the main force behind the defenses of the blockade, was finally beaten. His powerful energy, which seemed unbeatable at first, crumbled under the constant attack, leaving only faint memories of its former power. Charles stood in the middle of the battlefield as the dust settled. After being changed by the evil energy he called forth, his form went back to how it was before. His heart was racing, and the fight's energy was still pumping through his body. But as his body went back to normal, the glow in his eyes went away. The fight had worn him down, and it showed in his tired eyes. Steve was lying on the ground nearby, not moving. He had deep, painful cuts all over his body. The ground below was stained with blood that pooled around him. Charles felt terrible when he saw his friend fall. But when he got down next to Steve, he felt a rush of relief when he realized Steve was still alive, if only just. Luciel suddenly appeared by his side, saying that Charles is quite powerful for a demon, and that he is quite better than Ares or Lessa, whom he called the goat. Luciel added that Charles does have a scent of a beast, which means that he is a test subject of Ares' dark power experiment. Charles then yelled at Luciel to reveal his identity, who did and said that he is an unapproachable existence for a human like him, that he is an angel. However, Charles does not believe Luciel to be an angel as he doesn't look like one, and that he already knew that Luciel is together with Zazil. Luciel then explained that the situation is a bit complicated, and that it actually does not look like the pretty angels Charles had dreamed of, and that he wasn't planning on interfering, but he is stronger than he had expected. And since Zazil wants his body, Charles should hand it over to him. Zazil then comes out of Steve's body in its ethereal form, asking Luciel to give him Charles' body. Charles could not take it anymore and was about to dash at Luciel, asking him to give back Steve, but was suddenly stopped, by which his body was easily controlled by Luciel. Charles struggled with all his might, but he could not move as Luciel placed a stronger spell on him that made him fall on his knees. He then ordered Zazil to possess Charles' body and should kill Steve. Charles was so infuriated and struggled with all his might to break free, but he could not. It was at this moment that Lessa appeared and severed the control spell on Charles. Lessa then asked Charles to run away with everyone, but he won't listen, as he claimed that he can still fight and won't let anyone take his body. However, Lessa told him that he had never disappointed him before, so he should think of himself as a monster. Luciel then asked Lessa why he is wearing the clothes that do not suit him, to which Lessa replied that the clothes are a keepsake of Ra, and that he would not allow Luciel's plan to come to fruition. Luciel then asked Lessa if Ra did not mention about the original owner of the throne, the King of Moon, and that all the memories Ra buried in the void, including the cursed history, has finally returned with the fall, to which the other devils appeared with Luciel's side. While Lessa was looking at the devils, he was perplexed and pondered whether they were demons or apostles. Luciel took notice of this and made fun of him. After that, he went on to say that the creatures of the fallen ones are partially attributable to Lessa, and that because Lessa has had a negative impact on Ra's people, he has merely provided them with a new personality, and that this should not have occurred if it had been the case that people had been created in a horrific manner from the beginning, and that the thing that humankind dread the most is the moment when darkness descends over a world that is in disorder, and it appears that the way forward is beyond reach. On the other hand, this is not the case. Nonetheless, even in the midst of the darkness, events occur that are led by intent, as well as the fact that they have the hope that darkness will conceal their transgressions. The light that reveals their unattractiveness within the darkness is the thing that they are actually terrifying. And this was the reason why the Hunnins continued to generate devils and spirits. Lessa did not utter a single word. Rather, he simply gripped his blade in the appropriate manner as he recalled what Ra had spoken with him about the earth and the fact that they both had a love for it. However, love is the only way for them to find their way. Lessa then proceeded to discuss Ra and the extent to which Ra cherished Luciel. Luciel, on the other hand, did not feel any regret at all, because he asserted that it was the most superior form of amusement when the trust of the eternal being was broken. As a result of this statement, Lessa became outraged, and he immediately went into battle mode with his people changes. As a result, the devils prepared to launch an assault. However, Luciel intervened and prevented them from doing so by asserting that he would punish Lessa just by himself. During this time, Rainold was observed as he was examining his abilities in order to determine the boundaries of his capabilities. He noticed that he had become significantly weaker and believed that he was nothing without Ra. After that, Rainold did a nibble on the head with his staff, which caused Rainold to become enraged. Rainold said that he would grind the stick to dust if Ramiel attempted to strike him again using his staff. After that, Rabiel inquired as to whether or not he was familiar with the stick that he was holding, to which he responded that it was the spear the apostle had been given by Lord Ra, Lignum Vitae. Additionally, it was discovered that the original Lignum Vitae was the axis of this world, and that a portion of the axis was fashioned into a spear, and that each of the spears that the apostles carry have a specific function, given that the spear itself is a symbol of the authority that is bestowed upon the apostle. Because of this, it may be concluded that Ra had communicated sacred words to Rainold, and there is no question that he is the messenger of God. Mit arrived at their location at that moment to meet them with a weapon that was concealed within clothing. After that, Mit went on to explain that despite the fact that the weapon had sustained significant damage after the owner had passed away, it was still the sacred item of Michael, the Spear of Brightness, which was given the name Kabod. In response to Rainold's inquiry about the weapon, Rabiel revealed that it was Michael's spear, which he had inherited from his father. Rainold was taken aback by this revelation. After that, Mit threw the enormous spear at Rainold, who was unable to keep it in his grasp. Rainold yelled out in agony as the spear landed on his toe. While this is going on, Mit is not entirely certain that it is appropriate to commit it to Rainold, who appears to be pretty clumsy. On the other hand, Rainold was determined to demonstrate his worth, but he was unable to even lift the spear himself. In spite of the fact that Rainold is Michael's son, Rabiel was able to distinguish that Rainold is still part human, which means that it will be impossible for him to lift Michael's spear. The only person who is capable of lifting the spear is Mitt. Therefore, Rainold inquired about what they would like him to do with the spear, stating that it had the feel of a sword rather than a spear. Rabiel responded by explaining that the term spear is symbolic because the shape of the spear may be adapted to suit the needs of any individual user. Rainold was curious about whether or not his father was able to handle such a huge weapon with ease. He was informed that Michael was unable to handle kabod, and that in order for Rainold to acquire ownership of it, he must first comprehend the significance of the weight that kabod carries. Because the weapon was not his, Rainold was of the opinion that he could not possess it. Next, Rabiel went on to explain to him that spears are analogous to the other selves of apostles, and that they are fashioned by the apostles' hearts with the glory that was bestowed upon them by Lord Ra. Nevertheless, because Rainold has succeeded Michael's holy words, he has won the right to have kabod, and his spear will be born from within kabod. This is because Michael's holy words have been fulfilled. Mitt was then asked if he had been able to get in touch with Gabriel, to which Gabriel responded that he had not. Additionally, it was stated that the individual had been located, during which time they made the decision to travel to the location, where Mitt continued to carry kabod. When Rainold inquired about their destination, he was informed that the most skilled blacksmith of this era was going to be there. They arrived at the destination thanks to Mitt's leadership of the journey. However, they found themselves in an unpleasant situation in which Rainold was being trodden on. This caused him to become agitated as they attempted to rearrange themselves. At that moment, someone approached them, and it turned out to be someone that Rainold recognized. He referred to this person as Lexter. When Rainold saw Lexter, he was taken aback and asked him what he was doing there. Lexter responded by saying that this was his residence and that he believed Rainold and others were criminals. As a result, Rainold was skeptical of Lexter because the armory had been robbed a few days earlier. After that, Mitt inquired about Gabriel's whereabouts, asking Lexter, who he referred to as a small human. After that, Lexter responded by saying that Mitt should stop calling him a small human, and Gabriel responded by coming out of the restroom wearing clothes that were intended for humans. Even though Mitt was trying to give Gabriel a hug, he flung kabod away because he was so relieved to see Gabriel again and to know that he was safe again. After that, Mitt informed Gabriel that he ought not to have consumed human food, to which Gabriel said that he is unable to deny a human being's acts of kindness. It came to Lexter's attention that the customer Gabriel had mentioned was, in fact, Rainold. Rainold was likewise taken aback when he discovered that Lexter was the individual who was referred to as the most experienced blacksmith of this era. In the meantime, Lexter stated that he is not a blacksmith but rather a manufacturer of weapons or an engineer as opposed to a blacksmith. Mitt also said that Rabiel is the most intelligent of them all in terms of the world and the so-called trends, and that Rabiel is even aware of telephones. Rabiel, however, was of the opinion that it is the same. The angels, in Lexter's opinion, are rather comical since they believe that people are still using telephones while they are now utilizing smartphones. This is something that Lexter found to be quite humorous. Following that, Lexter inquired about Lucy and Lessa, inquiring whether or not they were doing well. Rainold responded by stating that no one was doing well, which left Lexter perplexed due to the fact that Ares had passed away. After then, Gabriel stated that he had witnessed the journey that Lexter had taken for the cause of humanity, and that he had realized that his efforts had not been in vain. The cruise of the problem, on the other hand, is deeply rooted, which indicates that the battle is not yet done. In addition, Lexter mentioned that despite the fact that they were able to make the demands disappear with the artificial sun, he continued to get the impression that tomorrow would never arrive. After that, Mitt inquired of Lexter whether he would be willing to assist and continue to fight for their cause. Lexter responded that he would, stating that it was now his chance to support Rainold, and so they parted ways. While Lexter was still in awe of the fact that they are genuine angels, he inquired of Rainold about the ways in which he could be of assistance. Rainold then turned his attention to the kabod angel. Gabriel and Rabiel were of the opinion that Lexter and Rainold would be able to do what they set out to do. Meanwhile, the three angels were hovering in the skies, wondering if Lexter and Rainold would be able to accomplish what they set out to achieve. Rabiel was then informed by Gabriel that the removal of the white crown could not be considered part of the plan, and that the other brothers must have been furious about it. After that, Rabiel went, stating that other people will be suitably angry at the fact that they have disturbed Kabad. Gabriel and Met responded by saying that Rabiel is still the same. It was observed that Luciel and Lessa were engaged in a struggle, during which Luciel called forth the flowers of the emptiness.